Story from across the border. This is one of my favorite subreddits, but I have noticed that most stories of the stories here happen in the USA. Here's a little taste of the horrors we live through south of the border in Mexico. This happened to a friend of my mother's relatives, a family of 4, Arturo the dad, Maria the mom, Eduardo the son, and Ana the daughter, who happened to be extremely beautiful. They live in Mexico City, but as is common for upper middle to upper class families, they went to spend a long weekend in Acapulco, a vacation spot that frankly has seen better days, as it was overshadowed by Cancun in the 80s. Acapulco had recently been the focus of gang-related warfare, since homegrown gangs refused to cede territory to the powerful Sinaloa cartel. This inconvenience, however, did not completely stop the flow of tourists to the once gorgeous, now decadent port, and did not stop Arturo and his family, something that they would later regret enormously. The family was dining in a restaurant next to the sea, enjoying the delicious seafood when the waiter, clearly nervous, came to the table with a bottle of expensive champagne and a note. "This is from those gentlemen over there," he said, pointing at a table where sat 4 men, where you could just tell at first glance were narcos, wearing gold chains, rings, and the like, and drinking Johnny Walker Blue Label. Arturo unfolded the note and read, "This is for you to have a toast with your daughter, as this is the last night you will ever see her." Arturo got up, left 1,000 pesos on the table for the meal, and they went straight back to the hotel where, in terror, they made their bags and prepared to leave immediately. Along the way to Mexico City, there are several desolate stretches where all you can see is desert and perhaps some misshapen little houses and a gas station. Arturo stopped the car at one of those gas stations to fill up. As he was filling up, 2 cars suddenly pulled into the gas station, one parking in front and one behind the family's car. They had been followed. Several men exited the vehicles and pointed their AR-15s at the family. They came to honor their word. They came for Ana. According to Arturo, there are few worse feelings than being powerless as you watch your daughter screaming and kicking being dragged into a car, which then speeds away over the horizon, never to be seen again. This is only one of many stories that have happened to me or my known ones, and I would be happy to share more if people are interested. Unfortunately, most of these incidents go unreported, since the fear of retaliation is too great. Late night convenience store run turns seriously weird. I was a 17-year-old male at the time of the story. Every Australia Day long weekend since I was 14, my friends and I would make the trip down the coast to Torquay, a popular holiday location in Australia. Mostly we would surf and skate during the day, and then hang out with the other kids at the local campgrounds during the night, where we would throw water bombs at the security guards who would chase us on their golf carts. We were little shits, but it was pretty fun. We were skating back to the place we were staying at one night, and it was around 1 or 2 in the morning, and we decided that we would stop in at the local petrol station, gas station, convenience store to grab some food. Just as we were leaving the store, a lady was walking in, and in a way which I do not have words to describe, she really creepily said to the 4 of us, "Hello boys, how are you?" I cannot tell why it was so strange and creepy, but it just did. Something just didn't feel right. Nevertheless, we skated back up towards the road, where a man was standing with one of the biggest Rottweiler dogs I've ever seen. As I skated past, I said to him, "G'day, happy Australia Day," to which he replied, "Thanks, mate." Once again in a way which was just not right. We continued skating down the road, back towards home, when I heard a man running. I turned around and saw the man with the dog sprinting down a side street, running perpendicular to the main road that we were on, and then all of a sudden, he just fell over despite there being nothing for him to trip over on. He just started howling in pain, yelling, "Help! My legs are broken! Help me, please!" over and over and over again. Naturally, I skated over to him to see if he was okay. I was confronted by his dog, which for a moment just stared at me, before like it was about to attack me. Then, the lady who we had seen walking into the petrol station earlier yells out to the dog, and it comes running over to her. I then said to her, "Excuse me, your friend is hurt. Something is wrong." She just then stared at my direction, before turning around and running in the opposite direction with the dog. She briefly stopped about 50 meters up the road, turned and looked at us, and then started running again. Meanwhile, the man was still yelling, "Help me!" on the ground, while stretching his arms out and staring right at us. At this point, I called an ambulance and requested the police as well, because the situation didn't seem right. All the yelling and screaming had alerted some of the people in the area, who came out of their houses to see what was happening. One of the ladies who came out was a nurse, and she approached me. I told her what I saw, and she told me that she would help. She began asking him questions. What happened? Have you taken any drugs or been drinking tonight, etc.? He didn't really give any real responses. He just continued yelling and pleading for us to help him, and he seemed particularly focused on me. At this time, I thought that nothing could really make this night any weirder, but I was wrong. All of a sudden, a bearded man comes running down the road from the same direction the lady had ran and approaches us. He told us that he was a doctor and that he would help. He then quite forcefully instructing the man to calm down and that it would be alright, and he was trying to get him to stand up. The nurse, who had obviously also caught on to the same suspicion that I had, that the man wasn't actually a doctor, told the doctor to stop and just leave him on the ground. The doctor was trying to hold the man down as the man was writhing around on the ground. The guy on the ground didn't like it at all and was yelling at the doctor to stop. He then turned to the doctor and yelled at him, "Adam, stop!" The doctor immediately let go and then sprinted back up the way he had come from. The man then began to cry, but he was still yelling and writhing on the ground. He managed to get out a few coherent sentences, yelling at us that he hadn't been drinking or doing drugs, that he was a recovering drug addict, he was 25, and he was sexually abused by his parents when he was young. This nurse, who knelt down beside him, put her hand on his shoulder and said, "It's gonna be okay." He then reached up very suddenly and punched her on the jaw, and then became very aggressive. He was trying to stand up while still screaming. The nurse's sons and a few other men who were standing around had to hold him down. He then calmed down back enough just as the ambulance and police arrived. The paramedics put him in the back of the ambulance and took him to the hospital, I assume, and my friends and myself told the police officer what we had seen. This may not be a story about an intruder in the house or a stalker or something like that, but it was just a night that was strange beyond all belief. Nothing seemed right about the incident, and we never found out what was really wrong with the guy. I'm 18 now, and I'm studying at university in Australia to become a paramedic, so after doing some research online and asking questions of some lecturers at university and some paramedics I've met, they told me that they would expect that he was experiencing some sort of paranoid delusions related to drug use, and it could have been related to drugs he had taken that night, or that he had done lots of drugs in the past. However, this still really doesn't provide an answer to the other strange events, such as why did it seem so weird when the lady spoke to us? Why did the lady run away? Why did she stop, turn, and look, and then continue running? And who was the doctor? Probably why I'm afraid of trees. Been creeping on Let's Not Meet for too long, and decided to post my own story. At the time, I was about 9 to 10 years old, and my cousin was a year older and my sister a year older than her. We would go on frequent family holidays, long weekends to less shitty parts of England, and this time we were in Nottingham, a generally nice place. Our mothers rented a cottage in a nice little estate, and down the road and turn a corner, there was a large grass area with a play park on it. Because my sister was slightly older and seemingly responsible at the time, and we were allowed to go to the park by ourselves as long as we were back before it was dark, this seemed more than fair to me, so me and my cousin, well known for ganging up on my sister, were soon climbing to the top of one of those slides that's like a tube that curls around. Standing on top of the slide, you could see that there was about 20 feet of grass behind the play park, and then a few rows of large forest-style trees, with a large path coming from behind them and leading into the grass. Behind the path was the beginning of a forest. At this point, we were beginning to bully my sister, who got annoyed, so left us alone in the park, but to be fair, we were little shits. Me and my cousin were taking in turns to go up the ladder to the top of the slide and come down, sitting inside the bottom of the slide till the other one kicked us into the back, kid stuff. Eventually, we decided to sit on top of the slides as more kids arrived with their parents, claiming it as ours. We watched people walk up and down the path, walking their dogs into the trees, and noticed a man, a normal-looking guy, come up from behind the trees and stand in the middle of the path facing the park. At this point, it was like everyone suddenly left at the same time, and we were left with this man who stood there, so naturally I kept my eye on him to see what he was up to, as he was the only interesting thing around. Now, me and my cousin would often make things to scare each other, her more than me because she was older and could think of better stuff, and she started trying to convince me that he was staring at us. Even though I was arguing he wasn't, I had a horrible feeling in my stomach, and watching him for a while longer, realized she wasn't joking this time, and was starting to freak. Suggesting we ignored it and carry on playing, we went down the slide, both hurrying to get out, and noticing he was still there, turned simultaneously towards a park gate and started to leave. Looking behind me as we left, I saw him walking back behind the trees. It took small discussion to decide we would go back onto our slide, as it was ours. Hurrying up the ladder, I went down the slide first, and while sitting in the bottom, waiting for my cousin to come down, I heard her quickly stamping over the wood, and she clambered down the slide behind me, panicking, telling me that he was back. We sat there for a while, staring at each other, panicking. Do we go up or down? What if he's at the bottom of the slide? What if he's at the top? Were the arguments we began to have. I was almost literally cracking my pants. We scrambled out, and seeing he was now climbing over the short fence of the play park, we figured high grounds was best and ended up sat on top of the slide. Why was he here when he wasn't walking a dog or even had kids? At the time, we were clearly overreacting. But then, as we stood on top of the slide silently, he took a seat on one of the swings and started swinging, like a child. He had short hair and was wearing a t-shirt and jeans, probably in his mid-30s, from what I remember of my image of him, and wore glasses. He started to ask, "Why won't you play with me?" Sort of chanting it. "Why won't you play with me? Why won't you play with me?" As we quickly began to make our way down the ladder again, my heart was pumping, and you know that heavy feeling you get in your stomach and your throat closes up, and you feel heavy but light at the same time and everything goes a bit fuzzy? We ran to the gates of the park, almost straight into a pram being pushed by a man with two small boys in tow. Another adult, I thought, that's fine. We'll just stay close to him, and it means we can still play on the park and avoid getting told off for bullying my sister a while longer. If I recall correctly, that's the main reason we were so determined to stay out of the house, to avoid a telling off. We went hesitantly back onto the park, and by the time we were on top of the slide, the man was just before the entrance behind the trees, stopped, looked behind, then carried on walking. I remember playing happily for a while, before the man and his children decided to leave, but we felt safe now. It had probably been about 20 minutes, but felt like an hour to us. But once the family had left the scene, the man made his way back out of the trees, and safe to say this time we legged it out of the gates and sat on a bench outside the park behind a wall, so we were obstructed from his view. Hopefully he'd think we'd gone and we could go back. But I just couldn't settle. We had decided going home was no option, and that our only option was to fight for our park. Around the bench was loads of loose cobblestones, and we filled every pocket we had with them and were ready to fight. But upon looking onto the park and seeing him stood at the top of the slide in our spot, legged it round the corner into our cottage. Our mom screamed and hollered, but I think we were happy to just get back. We told them our story and cried, but said we were okay because if he was going to come near us, we were going to throw stones at him and unfilled our pockets to prove it. Safe to say, they carried on yelling at us for a lot longer than that, and we weren't allowed anywhere by ourselves for a long time. Not because of potential child rapists, but because they thought we were gonna pelt innocent men with rocks and pebbles. Sorry if it's long, but I got a bit frantic halfway through when that feeling in my gut came back. Me and my cousin are up to similar shenanigans, but involving drinking and other such business, and as a 20-year-old girl, the only thing I am deathly afraid of is clusters of trees. Long story short, me and my cousin decided to stuff our pockets with stones to attack a potential attacker. Creepy Zoo Stalker. Long-time lurker, first-time poster. This happened to me a few weeks ago, and I thought it would be therapeutic to share. I'm sorry for anything graphic, and if this needs to be moved to another subreddit, then that's okay. But it's true. 100%. And it scared the shit out of me. As some background so it makes sense, I'm a young woman, and turned legal adult in my country. I am pansexual, and I have a girlfriend. I'll call her Cassie in the story. I'll also tell you now that I have ASD and SPD, which is sensory processing disorder. Loud crowds and sounds can easily distort me and cause me to have a meltdown, where I'm unable to talk properly or at all. It's not that I'm a socially anxious person or that I'm non-confrontational. I'm exactly the opposite, but my neurological disorder comes into play. One last fact, me and my girlfriend are not stereotypically skinny. In fact, I've been trying to lose weight for health reasons. I'm not obese, and neither is she, but we both have tummies, thick thighs, and huge chests. So if a guy is into me, I know it's usually not for my interest or intellect. Cassie and I, for our 1-year anniversary date, decided to go camping for the long weekend, and we ended up staying outside of the capital's limits. We decided to go to the zoo the next day, and I, having an almost childish sort of love for animals, was eager to go and see everything. The day arrives, and it's a very hot and clear day, so we both dress in tank tops and shorts to keep cool. When we first got there, we slathered on sunscreen on each other to keep ourselves from getting Irish tans, and then in our giddiness, shared a short kiss. Right off the bat, after pulling away, I noticed this guy was watching us from behind Cassie. He was balding, a little taller than Cassie, who is 5'2", but shorter than me since I'm 5'5". He was portly, with a Charlie Chaplin mustache and a pair of sunglasses on. I guess for some people still, seeing a pair of girls together who aren't sisters or best friends is weird, but this guy automatically made me feel nervous. I tried to brush it off as paranoia, and we bought our tickets and went into the zoo together. I thought that the guy watching us wouldn't be there, but nope. At every exhibit we went to, every time we stopped to look at an animal, he was there or next to us, staring at us. Cassie is a pretty observant person, so she noticed and tried to take loops to avoid him, but he just kept popping up. Eventually, though, he didn't show up alongside of us, so we thought he was done being creepy. Around this time, I didn't put in my foam earplugs, a way to keep me in loud, noisy places a while longer, and so everything was starting to get to me. By the time we got to a cafe that's there, I wasn't able to speak hardly at all, so I went nonverbal. Cassie had to use the restroom, and since it was quiet in there, she figured it was best to leave me alone. I was sitting at a table, nursing a chocolate milk and some poutine when, yup, creepy guy walks over. Before I can protest, he sits right down across from me at the table and starts talking. "So, what's your name, pretty girl?" I didn't answer, just stared at him. "Come on, don't be shy, what's your name? Was that girl your girlfriend? Are you a lesbian?" Those questions he kept repeating, and I was struggling to verbalize a strong go away to him, but all I could do was squeak. Yeah, not very threatening. So he keeps going, the questions getting a little more sexually aggressive. "You ever been penetrated? Ever use a really big dildo on yourself or your girlfriend?" etc. He even asked me if I'd ever had a threesome with my girlfriend. Finally, I had it when he touched my cheek and smirked. I literally stabbed his hand with a plastic fork I'd grabbed for the poutine. When he hollered, I smacked him and stormed into the bathroom. I used an app on my phone to alert Cassie of the situation, and we both agreed to tell the staff. Creepy guy was still at our table when we returned, and he gave us a look. I couldn't tell with the sunglasses, but I knew he was stripping me and my girlfriend. We told a worker what was going on, who immediately alerted the zoo security. Creepy guy got up and was about to leave when he was apprehended and started telling the guard that I was the one who harassed him. Big mistake. Angrily, I typed out a message explaining everything, to which Cassie confirmed, both of us ready to crucify this pig for even trying to pull that after what he did. Luckily, the guy believed us and had the guy escorted to his car. In apologies, we got free behind-the-scene passes and got to check out some really cool stuff, so that was fun. But later that day when we were leaving, the security guard pulled us aside and gave us his number. Apparently, while he was yanking the guy out, he said something that made this guy sick. He told him he just wanted to have a threesome with us, and one way or another he was going to penetrate a couple of lesbians. Word for fucking word, that's what he said. It stuck in my mind and I can't get it out. He gave us his number because he didn't want this creep attacking us and getting away with it. If we needed him to act as an additional witness or on our behalf, he would be glad to. To the security guard, "I want to thank you so much for going up and above the call of duty. Luckily, this guy never harassed us again, and I haven't seen him since the zoo. So, creepy guy who watches way too much pornography, please let's never meet, or you're gonna be sorry." This is an update, because of what happened today. Just really, wow. Okay, first of all, remember the creepy guy? He's a fucking registered sex offender. He's been in the slammer for sexual assault, stalking, etc. of other female and female couples. We got a call from the police because the aforementioned security guard caught him stalking another lesbian couple in the same zoo. This time, he apprehended him and called the police. They found chloroform in his truck and duct tape, as well as his record on file, and he'll be put back behind bars for a long time now. Thank God I reacted that way. Because guys, I want to make something clear. With my disability, despite being confrontational, I'm actually at a disadvantage in those situations. I'll admit, I was terrified because I couldn't protest against this guy, and my reaction time in that state is slow. So the fact I was able to do that is a miracle in my opinion. Also, it becomes obvious when I'm having a sensory overload. I go red in the face, my eyes are droopy, and I shake a little bit aside from going mute. Up close, it's easy to see, so this guy, I don't doubt for a minute he knew I was either having a serious panic attack or inhibited somehow. I was an easy target. He could have gone after Cassie, who was in the bathroom, but he picked me. He picked me instead. I don't want to even think on this guy was planning on doing something to me or grabbing me. I'm just really thankful to God about my reaction time wasn't sluggish that day, you know? Tomorrow my girlfriend and I are going to the police station to give our statements and make sure this creep isn't out there again. Wish us luck, guys. P.S. This is because of my disorder, so I'm sorry, but I saw the comments and I have to correct this. You can skip over it. Being pansexual means I'm attracted to all genders. I could be someone guy or female, transgender, cross-dresses, etc., okay? My girlfriend is bigender. She likes dressing and feeling more masculine, but is still proud of being a girl, so I'm not bisexual because I'm not limited to just a plain guy or girl. If that helps make a bit more sense, then thanks. We are, though, in a lesbian relationship because we both identify as girls ultimately. Second update. Sorry it's been a few days. We went down to the station in the city so we could ID this guy. He was being investigated for other stalking and harassment charges as well, and I don't know exactly the idiom used to describe it, but it was disgusting to see the man that may have intentionally targeted me. And as it turns out, there was another guy working with him, and he was at the zoo the day that we were there. He could have been nearby, and I never saw him. That's really scary. Because apparently how these two worked was creepy guy would force the woman to go to their car, and number two would be there to ambush them. He's apparently, from what Cassie overheard, the one who assaulted them. There was a total of 3 victimized couples, while the guy either watched and or took care of himself while standing guard. This surprisingly hasn't hit the press yet, and I would know because I work as an editor for a paper I will not name. If anyone would know that the story isn't out, it's me. This close call is even worse than I initially thought, and they haven't found his accomplice yet. Hopefully he stays far away from us or doesn't even know we exist. I'm praying for the latter. If anything else happens, I'll update. It's highly unlikely that this guy is out for blood, but just in case, Cassie took out her knife collection. Yes, she has one of those and is sleeping with one under her pillow. She's a paranoid person, and I don't blame her right now. I'm even nervous posting this update. I keep thinking he's gonna read this. Anyways, thank you for all the support. And I'm glad to know I did the right thing in that circumstance. Any other words of encouragement are greatly appreciated as well. It means a lot to both of us that we're getting support and not being blamed for what happened. I've heard stories where people have said they deserved it for being sinners. Disgusting, but true. Well, for now, update as soon as anything relating to the story happens. This is the third update. Yes, something did happen. Remember how I told you guys that there was an accomplice and partner that this guy had? Well, my girlfriend and I encountered him a few days ago, and we're still not sure if we're safe or not. I go to the city we're both in with the zoo about once a month for a special deep tissue massage, which helps with my sensory issues. It's a bit expensive, but it helps. The area we went in is about a 50-minute drive from the zoo, but I didn't think we'd be in any trouble. Boy, was I ever wrong. We stopped at a McDonald's because they do their dollar drink days deal thingy, and I love to get a large root beer. Across the street is a tattoo parlor, and guess who just happened to walk out? Creepy guy's accomplice that we were warned about. I'll describe him the best I can without revealing anything I'm not supposed to. He was taller than me, and I'm 5'6", so I'm guessing about almost 6 feet, maybe less. Reddish yellow hair that's long, and a beard and mustache. In any case, he saw us too and began to make a beeline across the street towards us. We were outside with the drinks at that time, and we literally ran for our truck, got in and sped out of there. We called the police and reported what we saw, and they're looking for him now. Damn, that was either a really bad coincidence or he'd been following us. I put my foot down the other day, and we adopted a dog. A 2-year-old pit bull German Shepherd cross that I've named Biscuits. I'm training him myself to defend us with some help from a friend, so if this guy comes knocking, we'll be protected. Plus, he'll double as a therapy dog for me once I put him through a proper course and register him. So in short, if the accomplice tries to or manages to find us, my dog will probably be one of my few lines of defense. Not that I want to put my new baby in harm's way, but he's already big and looks more like a pit bull, so he might at least scare off anyone who tries to hurt me or Cassie. Update later if this guy gets caught. Good news! This man was finally found and arrested. Mine and Cassie's nightmare is, at last, over. We found out he was caught last night by our new friend, the security guard from the zoo, who has wonderfully kept us updated. Sadly though, how they found him really disturbs me. A 13-year-old girl called the police, saying a man was trying to break into her home and making sexual threats against her being. Luckily, they responded quickly enough that this guy couldn't make a clean getaway, and was caught and charged with rape, sexual assault, stalking, attempt to break and enter. My word, there was a freaking lot. But Thanks to everyone who has sent me and Cassie kind words. We both appreciate it dearly.